Don't you want to try the coffee I made just for you, honey? James asked, smiling in a way that never reached his eyes. I sat at my sister-in-law Nina's elegant dining table in her Nashville home, where we gathered for our monthly family brunch. The coffee cup in front of me gave off a faint, metallic smell that made my stomach twist. My name is Christina, I'm 29, and I never thought I'd be wondering if my husband was trying to poison me, but after 3 years of marriage, and too many accidental food poisonings, I'd learned to be careful, especially around Nina. She always managed to leave me sick or humiliated, her face perfectly composed in false concern. How thoughtful of you, I said, forcing a smile as my mind raced. The aroma from the cup reminded me of last month, when I'd landed in urgent care after drinking tea at Nina's house. The doctors had no explanation, and Nina swore she'd made it exactly the same way for herself. Across the table, Nina stirred her untouched coffee, eyes glinting. James has become quite the barista lately, she said with a smirk. He's been experimenting with new brewing methods, just for you. The way she lingered on for you sent a chill down my spine. James had been spending more time at her house lately, supposedly planning a surprise for our anniversary, but the secret of whispers, the sudden phone silences, the odd texts I'd glimpsed, all of it led to this moment. And now this strange-smelling coffee. I lifted the cup, pretending to sip, watching their faces. James and Nina exchanged a glance, quick, but enough to confirm my suspicions. Feigning distraction, I stood abruptly. Oh, would you look at that, I need to make a quick work call. Nina, may I use your study? As I passed her place setting, I stumbled deliberately, steadying myself, and in that motion, switched our cups. I'm so sorry, I gasped, straightening up. Nina waved a manicured hand dismissively. Just don't break anything in the study. I nodded, heart pounding, and walked toward the study. From the doorway, I had a clear view of the table. Now I just had to wait. Nina lifted the cup to her lips, taking a sip. My stomach tightened. Part of me wanted to stop her, but I needed to know. Too many nights in emergency rooms, too many unexplained illnesses. It hadn't always been this way. When I met James at a wedding 3 years ago, he was charming, attentive. Nina had been welcoming, too, almost too much. Looking back, I should have noticed the small cruelties disguised as accidents, a spilled drink here, a ruined dress there, always followed by her sweet apology. The accidents escalated, an upset stomach, a rash, a hospital stay. James always had a reason. Maybe it's something you ate, maybe you're just stressed, but the pattern was undeniable. The worst was 2 months ago, when I was hospitalized after breakfast at their house. The doctors found traces of an unidentified substance. James convinced everyone it was expired medication. Now, as I watched Nina sip again, her hand trembled. She set the cup down, face draining of color. James, she whispered, her voice shaking, something's wrong. James looked up, eyes wide. Nina, what did you, wait, his words broke off as realization dawned. That wasn't supposed to be your cup. I stepped from the study, phone recording. What wasn't supposed to be her cup? I asked quietly. Nina's eyes widened. James? Her voice was a gasp. Call an ambulance, please. I dialed 911, steady despite the chaos. We need an ambulance at 1542 Maple Grove Drive. My sister-in-law is having a severe reaction to something in her coffee. The dispatcher's calm voice filled my ear as I watched Nina's fear replace her usual smugness. Christina, she rasped. You switched the cups, you knew. James stood frozen, color draining from his face. Nina, stop talking, you're confused. But Nina's anger flared even through her pain. You said it would just make her sick enough to miss the board meeting. You promised it wouldn't be traced. My blood ran cold. The board meeting, next week, the same one Nina had wanted to lead for months at our competing firms. The tea last month, I said slowly, and the breakfast, that was you too? Nina grimaced. We just wanted to make you look unreliable. James said it'd only make you ill. She doubled over, gasping. You weren't supposed to drink it today. Sirens wailed outside. James backed away, shaking his head. Nina, stop, just stop. But she kept talking. We've been planning this for months. Ever since you started outperforming me, you were supposed to make sure she drank it. Paramedics burst through the door. As they lifted Nina onto a stretcher, I stopped recording and sent the video to my email, and to my lawyer. James stood motionless, watching everything collapse. I'll ride with her, I told the paramedics. I want to be sure my sister-in-law gets proper care. Then, turning to James, I added, I'm sure the doctors will want to know exactly what was in that coffee. Hours later, at Nashville General, I sat in the waiting room, phone in hand, replaying the recording, every word, every admission, proof that I hadn't imagined any of it. A nurse appeared. Family of Nina Anderson? I stood, scanning the room. James was nowhere in sight. He'd said he was parking the car 20 minutes ago, and never came back. The truth in the hospital. I'm her sister-in-law, I said, following the nurse through the double doors. How is she? She's stable for now, the nurse replied, her tone cautious, but we found troubling levels of toxins in her system. The doctor wants to discuss some unusual findings. Dr. Phillips was waiting outside Nina's room, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and sharp, assessing eyes. Mrs. Bennett, she greeted me, can you tell me exactly what happened before your sister-in-law became ill? I took a deep breath, unlocking my phone. Actually, doctor, you should hear this first. I pressed play. The audio from brunch filled the sterile hallway, Nina's panicked voice, James's damning admission. By the time it ended, Dr. Phillips's professional mask had cracked. This is extremely serious, she said, typing rapidly on her tablet. The substance we found isn't something you'd find in a kitchen. This was deliberate contamination. A voice interrupted from the end of the corridor. Christina. James stood there, pale and sweating, eyes darting between us. He'd clearly heard enough. Please, just let me explain. Stay back, Dr. Phillips warned, hitting the nurse's call button. Security to room 412. James raised his hands. This is all a misunderstanding. Nina was confused. She didn't know what she was saying. Really? I asked, scrolling through my phone. Because these texts between you and her, about making sure I'm out of commission before the Henderson presentation, sound pretty clear to me. His face drained of color. You went through my phone? After I found a syringe in your desk drawer? You bet I did. I turned to Dr. Phillips. Doctor, I've been hospitalized 3 times in the past 6 months with mysterious symptoms. Can you check if they match what you found in Nina's system? Dr. Phillips nodded grimly. We'll compare your records immediately. And don't worry, your husband won't be going anywhere. 2 security guards arrived, positioning themselves beside James. His composure began to crack. Nina and I, he stammered, we were just trying to help you slow down. You've been pushing yourself too hard, taking all the major clients, Nina said. Poisoning me was your idea of help? I cut in, my voice trembling with anger. How long has this been going on? Did you do it at the Christmas party, too? James's silence told me everything. Through the window behind him, I could see Nina in her hospital bed, surrounded by monitors, her earlier smugness replaced by sheer terror. Detective Mendoza is on her way, Dr. Phillips said quietly. She'll want to take statements. I nodded, feeling an odd calm settle over me. After months of gaslighting and pain, the truth was finally surfacing. Detective Mendoza arrived within the hour, all focus and authority. She listened intently as I replayed the recording and showed her the texts. Mrs. Bennett, she said, flipping open her notebook, you mentioned previous hospitalizations? I pulled out my phone again, opening a document I'd been maintaining for months. Yes, February, April, and June, each time after visiting Nina. Severe stomach pain, dizziness, sometimes worse. The symptoms were never quite the same, so doctors couldn't connect them. The detective's brow furrowed as she reviewed the notes. And you started documenting once you suspected a pattern? I hesitated, then reached into my purse and pulled out a second phone. I also started recording conversations. They were careful, but not careful enough. In one clip, Nina's voice came through, clear and cold. The Henderson account is worth millions. James, we can't let her ruin this. Just stick to the plan, a few days of illness should be enough. Then James, I've got something stronger this time. She won't make it to the presentation. Detective Mendoza's jaw tightened. That's more than enough to establish motive and premeditation. Through the window, Nina stirred weakly, eyes flicking between us and the guards. Whatever game she'd been playing was over. The hospital's running full toxicology, Mendoza said. Dr. Phillips already identified compounds that don't occur naturally. We'll also need samples from your home. A sudden commotion broke out down the hall. James was struggling against the guards. I need to talk to my wife, he shouted. Christina, please, you don't understand. We were protecting you. Protecting her? Mendoza snapped, stepping forward. Mr. Bennett, we've already found evidence of planning. That's not protection, that's attempted murder. James let out a hollow laugh. Murder? We never meant. Then what did you mean to do? I asked coldly. When you slipped something into my coffee this morning? He had no answer, only silence. Behind him, Nina watched from her hospital bed, her expression shifting between fear and fury. I could almost see her calculating, already trying to find a new lie. Detective, Dr. Phillips said, entering the room with a tablet. You'll want to hear this. We followed her into Nina's room. Nina tried to sit up, but the tremors in her hands gave her away. The toxicology report shows several substances, Dr. Phillips said. Most alarming is a compound used in pharmaceutical testing, something not available outside controlled labs. Nina's face went white. That's impossible. James said it was just something mild. Mild? Mendoza repeated, like the poisons your sister-in-law's been ingesting for months. The door opened, and another officer entered holding an evidence bag. Detective, we found these in Mr. Bennett's office desk, small bottles with compound labels, handwritten dosage notes, and reaction logs. I stared at the bottles, my stomach turning. You were documenting everything, I whispered, like it was an experiment. Nina's voice cracked. It wasn't like that. We just needed to know what worked. You kept bouncing back. You were supposed to stay home, not. So you increased the doses, Mendoza finished. Did you even realize those substances could be lethal? Silence. Through the window, James sat slumped in the hall, his head in his hands. The Henderson account, I said, piecing it all together. It wasn't just about the presentation. The client specifically asked for me, didn't they? You needed me out of the way permanently. Nina's expression twisted, fury bleeding through her fear. You stole everything from me. I built that portfolio, those clients were mine. Then you came in and took it all. By killing me? I said softly. The words hung between us. Dr. Phillips looked down at her tablet, her tone measured but grave. For the record, the concentration in the coffee today was high enough to be fatal. We've analyzed samples from Mrs. Bennett's earlier hospital visits, Dr. Phillips said. Had she consumed the full amount in today's coffee, the result would likely have been fatal. Detective Mendoza turned to her partner. We'll need full search warrants for both their homes and offices, and contact the pharmaceutical company listed on those bottles, find out how they got access. Nina sagged back against her pillows, her voice barely a whisper. It wasn't supposed to go this far. James kept saying we just needed one more try. I stepped closer to her bed, my voice calm but cold. Every time I got sick, every meeting I missed, every client I lost, you were both there, watching, taking notes on how your poison worked. What kind of people does that make you? Silence. Outside the room, I heard the unmistakable cadence of James being read his rights. Nina stared down at her trembling hands, unable to look at me. Detective, I said quietly, turning away from her. I'm ready to give my formal statement now. The trial lasted 3 weeks, though it felt like years. Each day, I sat in the courtroom and listened as the prosecution methodically dismantled their defense. The evidence was damning, the bottles found in James's office, the dosage logs, the text messages, the recordings. Every detail told the same story, deliberate, calculated harm. Nina, once so composed, looked small and hollow behind the defense table. James never lifted his eyes, flinching each time the witnesses spoke his name. Dr. Phillips's testimony sealed their fate. She presented charts showing how the dosages had increased over time, establishing clear intent. A representative from the pharmaceutical company confirmed that James had obtained the compounds illegally through a former classmate in their research division. The defendants exhibited a sustained and escalating pattern of behavior. The prosecutor declared in her closing argument, this was not an accident. It was a systematic campaign of poisoning, one that could easily have ended in death. When the verdict came, I didn't feel triumph, just release. Both James and Nina were found guilty on all counts, including attempted murder and conspiracy. As the judge pronounced the sentence, his voice carried through the silent courtroom. The premeditated nature of these actions, committed against a family member over months of deception, warrants the maximum penalty under law. I watched without emotion as they were led away in handcuffs, 2 people I'd once loved, now strangers bound by greed and envy, their careers, reputations, and freedom, all destroyed by their own choices. A year later, I stood at the podium of the Nashville Business Leaders Conference, preparing to deliver the keynote address. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the kind of moment Nina had tried to take away. The Henderson account, the one they'd conspired to steal, had become my firm's biggest success story. It opened doors to new clients, awards, and the recognition I'd worked years to earn. Success, I began, facing the crowd, isn't just about hard work or talent. It's about integrity, about choosing honesty even when others don't. I paused, scanning the room. Sometimes the greatest challenges come from the people closest to us, but surviving them makes us stronger. Afterward, a young woman approached me, her eyes bright. How did you stay calm through everything you went through? I focused on what I could control, I said. I trusted my instincts, gathered proof, and never let fear dictate my choices. Later that night, an email from the Henderson team confirmed their contract renewal for another 3 years. I smiled, thinking of how differently things might have ended if I hadn't trusted myself that morning at brunch. That same day, the local paper ran a short piece about Nina and James beginning their prison sentences. I didn't read it. Instead, I turned back to the proposal on my desk, another client, another challenge, another chance to build something real. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success.